Good morning. I just thought I'd do a wee clip today on making bread. Now this bread is the most basic of all doughs, and this is not sourdough, it's just sandwich bread basically. It's something that you can put in a loaf tin, bake, have for sandwiches. You can freeze it down and just pull pieces out as you need them, once you've cut it, that is, and just throw them straight into the toaster and away you go. Nothing fancy, but it is the most basic of all doughs, but a good one to start with if you've never made bread. It's just so easy. Anyway, I've taken a kilo of flour and put it into my mixing bowl, and then the ratios for salt in most bread are 2%. So anyway, for this I've just 2% of a kilo, so you've got 20 grams. So you put 20 grams straight into your flour. I put 3% of oil into the dough, so we're looking at 30 grams. And that can be oil, that can be a type of fat, that can be butter if you wanted. I do find butter can make the dough quite soft. Yeah, and any oil of your choice. You could probably even use margarine, but just generally a fat. And then we go 1.5% yeast, giving us 15 grams. And I just use instant yeast because it's just available from most supermarkets, and it's just really easy to use, and I keep it in the fridge. It lasts a bit longer, but it's generally good in the fridge for up to 6 months. Yeah, so 15 grams of yeast, and try not to put the yeast on top of the salt. Some people here would add some sugar as well to the dough. I just tend not to add sugar into my doughs. Just don't like the idea of it that much. I mean, it will kickstart things a bit faster, and the yeast will eat the sugar. So you could add 20 grams or 30 grams of sugar into there if you really wanted to, but that's optional. I don't think it needs it. There's enough sugar in the carbohydrates of the flour. And next we add 700 grams of water, which I'll just go and get. And the general thing with your water is just warm water, but you can just not hot to the touch is the easiest way to do it if you don't have a thermometer. That's the way I do it. It's not hot to the touch, but the nice warm water will speed things up. I add 700 mils into here, straight into the mixing bowl. The other thing too, if you want to make this whole meal or rye, you can do a bit of a mix. I would only do it in the last 300 grams of your kilo. So if I was doing a wholemeal loaf, I would do 700 or 800 grams of plain flour and then 200 of wholemeal flour, or maybe you could do a blend of 700 white, 100 rye and 200 wholemeal. At this stage, if you don't have a mixer, then you've just got to get in by hand, bring it together, put it out onto the bench, on a floured bench, scrape your hands, and then start kneading it and just knead it for probably up to 12 minutes if you're hand kneading. If you've got the luxury of a mixer, then I do 2 minutes slow and 9 minutes a bit faster, sort of on a medium speed with the dough cooking. Cruise over here. Right, I'm going to pause this now and do the mixing. Here's a little bit of the dough mixing. I tend to have my dough at what is 70% hydration, so that's 700 mils to a kilo. Everything when you talk percentages in bread is done off the actual weight of the flour. So the flour being 1 kilo is a really nice easy way to start. And then so, 70% hydration of a kilo of flour would be 700 mils. But you can go down to about 58%. I just find that's quite a tight dough. It's hard on the machine for a home machine. And I just prefer my doughs wetter, sometimes I've done this dough at 75%, which is generally what you do, say, a sourdough at, but it depends on the dough, a ciabatta dough can be up to 85%, so anyway, I'm going to pause again for a little bit, and I'll come back. Okay, I've given my dough a good mix in the mixer. It's done its time, 2 minutes on slow to bring it together, 9 minutes a bit faster. And because it is a wet dough, to get it out I just wet my hands, and then I can kind of scrape round the dough hook and the dough doesn't stick to my hands as much. When you're mixing a dough in a machine, you're not really getting oxygen into it. You're stretching the gluten, which is good because you want to develop the gluten, but yeast also needs oxygen. So what I tend to do with my dough here, I'll wet my hands and then I'll lift from the bottom up and over, and I'll kind of turn the bowl and then go lift from the bottom the dough up and over and do like another turn, like another third, and then go up and over. And this is kind of just to do a little bit of layering, and what that does is help trap a bit of oxygen into the dough, and it just really helps with that, giving it a good lift. Anyway, I'm just going to wet my hands and go on and do that and see if I can actually show you what I'm doing. So I'm going to tilt the dough over here, and I'll just bring it out and then round, out and kind of round, out from the bottom, up and over. Just do that. It folds up and over. And then we want to put it in a nice warm spot, not near a door or window that's got a draft. We want it to be in a nice warm spot with a damp tea towel over it, and we're going to let this double in size. I'll find a tea towel, wet it, with this dough, I generally just do proof in the bowl, and then I do some folds, and a second proof in the bowl, and then I take it out of the bowl onto the bench and get it ready to go into tins for its third proof, third and final proof. But if you're in a real rush, you can actually just take it out, shape it up, put it into your loaves, and you just do one proof in the tin. And that's quite often what they'll do in a commercial bakery, and they'll do that. That's what gives you that super fine bubble, like the super soft sandwich bread is just having one proof. I prefer having sort of bigger bubbles, which they call crumb. So I do a couple of proofs, each their own. Anyway, the other trick you can do is, if you've got an oven that goes down to 30 degrees, you can turn it on to 30 degrees, let it get up to temperature, then turn the oven off and slip the dough in. That'll kind of speed the whole process up, especially in winter. Summer you're never going to have a problem, but you know. Anyway, I'm going to do that now, and I'll come back. Just a couple of other points as well. As far as the flour goes, I mean, preferably I'd like to use organic flour, you know. And, so we get Millmore Downs flour quite often. Sometimes the protein in the flour is not as high as I'd like, but and some people believe that the reason that I'm getting things like Crohn's and celiac disease and issues with gluten is because of the flours being higher in protein. They've been bred the wheat to produce higher amounts of gluten. I don't know. I personally think using natural starters, natural ferments, is a better way of breaking things down so our bodies can digest them better. So, you know, for a loaf like this, if you did have some starter, you could put a bit of you could put a couple of tablespoons in of starter on top of that as well, just to help with lift and help with breaking stuff down. Anyway, also, you know, you're sort of looking for a baker's flour generally. 12% protein. Look on the back at the protein content. 12% or above. You know, they can go up to 16%. Is quite a high protein. Yeah, I buy organic generally if we can get it. You know, sometimes you do have a bit of difficulty. If you are going to just use regular flour, probably better off to use white flour than whole grain. And the reason I say that is that it's the outside, it's the husk. I know it's better for you as far as fibre goes, but that's the husk is what gets sprayed in a lot of different fungicides. The husk is what gets sprayed, and it gets sprayed to stop going mouldy, so it's got more chemicals on it. So at least, even if the wheat is sprayed as well, at least if it is plain flour, then it's been taken out of the husk, so it hasn't got a lot of the other sprays on it or less. So that's my thoughts anyway, but each to their own. Anyway, we're proving at the moment, and I'll come back in a moment. Okay, we're back, and the dough is doubled in size. You can see it there. Right, now I'm going to do that whole thing I was talking about, of knocking it back and folding it. So I'm going to try and do this with one hand. Which is actually a little bit tricky. put the towel back over the top and prove it a further 25 minutes. So it's generally about 25 minutes it takes, and if it's warm enough to for it to double in size, come up nice. So I've done 25, let it prove up, doubled in size, folded it, and now I'm going to let it do the same again. Okay, we're back, and the bread's had its second prove, the dough, and I'm going to tip it out on the bench now, and we'll go from there. Anyway, see, oh, it's risen up, it's actually stuck to the top of the tea towel, which is annoying when that happens, but that's because it proved up so much. So I'll just pick that off and I'll soak the towel so it comes off easily in the wash. Next thing, it's really good to have like dough scrapers or dough cutters, all different types. Used to get these in the bakery from different companies like Bakewells or Western Milling, but out of all of these, one like that is my favourite. I just find it's really good for scraping and getting everything out of the bowl. You can still use it to sort of cut as well, to cut dough off. It's just it's a good size. And you can get these from most sort of like catering hardware stores, here in New Zealand. Southern Hospitality is most likely got them. I'm pretty sure they've got them. Anyway, so I'm going to put some flour out onto my bench. Get my scraper, just bring that dough out and onto the bench.
Do not log into the video. Do not eat the square. Do not eat the 45. Maybe, or I will eat it. I'm saying it not.
You can kind of see like how much I can get out with that. It's really easy.
It gave him the clue.
Now, dust the dough a wee bit. Make sure it's not sticking to the bench, or do your best. Just to lift it up with your scraper. Put a bit of extra flour underneath if you need to. And then you just want to get your dough out and cut it in half really, or switch it around that way so you can sort of see. I'm just evenly cutting it into two because a kilo worth of dough will do your 2 loaves up. And then from there, just get dough. And I just sort of draw it into the middle, kind of just draw and fold until you get it nice and tight. Really just fold it in, and what you're doing is you're creating surface tension, and that's what you want with your dough. Once you've got it in nice and tight, I'll just kind of pinch off the crease that you've rolled it into and keep the smooth side up. I should have done this before. You just squeeze up your tins. And then we'll just pop the dough in, crease down. Second one now. I just draw it in. Keep on doing that, tucking it, rolling and tucking. This is my method anyway. Everyone that bakes kind of has their own method, but you just find shaping is a really important part of making bread. Really nice, getting that tension and getting good shape like that just seems to help getting a really nice structured loaf that's just got good lift. Anyway, got those in the tin. I've got to do the same thing again now. Wet tea towel or damp tea towel over the top. Just got those like that. I kind of find for that next brew, I'll go for 15 minutes. And at 15 minutes, that's sort of the same time I put my oven on, and so do 15 minutes of proving, put my oven on, and then usually take the top off the top of, I'll take the towel off the top of the loaves. Anyway, I'll let that happen, I'll let those prove up, and I'll pause here for a second, and then I'm going to be back. Also, another little thing with the scrapers, they're really good. Just a cleaning bench and getting off all the bits of dough at the end, you know. So that way you get a clean bench, or just one part of your cleaning anyway. You get that all nicely scraped down, and then get your compost bin or whatever, and you can just scrape it straight off the bench and into the bin. Easy. Okay, so we've waited another 15 minutes in the tins with your damp towel over the top, and they just sort of come up a bit more now. Just lift that. I find that's just a good time to put the oven on. So I whack the oven on 200 now. Oven's on. And then I'll probably leave these another 5 to 10 minutes, but I'll show you again when they get there. Anyway, I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so we've done the 15 minutes proof in the tin with the damp towel over the top. Then at 15 minutes we'll turn the oven on to 200. Now we've just waited another 5 minutes, and I'll just take the top off the loaves now, or take the towel off, sorry. At this stage I want it to form a little bit of a skin, so when you're proving, you always want to have moisture. You know, quite often if you've got a real prover, it's got a lot of moisture in it, and it's at a really nice warm ambient temperature, and that means the dough can rise and it won't form a skin, and it won't tear. It can keep pushing up and rising if the skin is soft. Okay, but once you get it to where you want to bake it, it's good just to let it dry off a little, and this will just help with the crust, and it'll help it sort of keep a really good shape. So yeah, at this stage I take the towel off, and I'm just going to leave it another 5 minutes just to sort of dry. And what I'm hoping to do here is I bring the bread up to more than 2/3, it's more like 3/4, maybe slightly more, to almost fully proved. And that's at about that time, or about 3/4 proved. That's the time when it's best to score it. If it's up and it's fully proved, it's coming over the top, like that's when it's really overproved. And then when you go to cut it, what you'll notice is just the loaves just sort of collapse. They can't handle that. So if you get it in first, you get the scoring in first, you won't have that issue with it collapsing. Okay, so I'm going to leave it another 5 minutes or so and come back. Okay, so I went away, made a cup of coffee and came back, and now we're sort of at the point where I'm going to score. So that was another 5 minutes. You can see now that it's coming up above the tin. This is quite a high tin, so just leave that at that. Anyway, this is where you could dust your loaves in flour if you wanted to, or for some people, or in a bakery, you dust and then score, or you could put sesame seeds on and then score, or poppy seeds, or you know, or some sort of seeds on the top if you want to do that. I'm just going to give you a little example and give this loaf just a light dusting, and then you'll get to see what sort of effect it leaves at the end. Anyway, so I've just got a wee sieve, bit of flour.
I'm doing it with spider web.
Just give it
I'm doing it with spider web.
light dusting, so you can see the tops of the loaves there like that. One's dusted, one's not. And then usually people will use a razor blade here. That's on a stick to do their scoring. I've just got a really sharp knife, and I'm just going to do quick, and you know, like a couple of centimetre or a centimetre deep sort of slashes into it, like that. I'll do the other one. See how that's pulled a little bit on that side? That is because it's a little bit overproofed. That one's handling it alright. Anyway, the oven should be at the right heat now, so I'm about to stick that into the oven. Okay, now I've scored that bread and we're about to put it in the oven on 200. I always get sort of like about a third of a cup of water in a container and splash it into the bottom of the oven as I put them in. Some people like a tray with a tea towel. It's just that they don't care too much about an old towel, and soak it in some water and just sort of scrunch that up and leave that in the bottom. And what you're doing is you're just trying to create steam, and the whole idea is that at the first part of your baking you're creating steam, and it really helps with that lift and giving it a bit of crust. And then in the final part of your baking you release that steam. In commercial ovens you'll have like a little flap that you can open up and let all that steam out, and they'll also have injectors that inject the steam in right at the beginning of baking. Anyways, because I'm at home and this is more about baking at home, we'll just chuck some water in the bottom when I put the loaves in. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. You can see how that's looking now. They go in just gently. Try not to sort of bang them down because we don't want to. And I've got some water, splashing that in the bottom, shutting the lid, and I'm going to put that on for 20 minutes to begin with. Okay, so I bake that at 20 minutes, open the oven, release the steam. I usually turn the tins round because most ovens don't, even commercial ones, they don't. They're not even heat over the whole of the oven, evenish, but not 100% even. It's just the way it is really. So usually you have a few hot spots in your oven, so just by turning things around the other way it helps even up the colour and the baking. So
I'll come back in 20 minutes, we'll release the steam, I'll turn them, and then I'll put them on for a further 5 minutes, and then they should be baked. Anyway, back soon. Okay, we are back at the 20-minute mark. Just opening the oven, releasing that steam, and just warm that. Going to give it a wee bit of a turn. And again, I should do another 5 minutes. Right. Back in 5. Okay, so I've given it another 5 minutes, the bread, and I'm about to pull it out now, and so have a wee look. That's the one with the flour. It's just the regular other tins. Good indicator if it's ready or not is you just sort of give it a bit of a bang on the bottom like that, and it should sound nice and hollow. That's the way you know. So there you go, couple of loaves, and I'll cut those once they've cooled down a wee bit, maybe in 15-20. Sometimes I do it earlier, I cut them a little bit earlier, because it is nice having it really, like fresh and warm, but if you're too keen, it kind of, when you're cutting it, it goes a bit doughy, so best to wait 5 minutes and cut it, but in this case I'll probably wait about 15 minutes. Anyway, see you in a sec. Okay, it's only been 5 minutes, but I thought I'll cut it anyway. Couldn't be bothered waiting around for 20 minutes. Anyway. So there you go, that's the inside. So obviously, like I said, I do 2 proofs and then a third proof in the tin. If you wanted those whole smaller and more like fluffy white bread from the supermarket, then you would just do the 1 proof in the tin. But there we go, that's it. Happy days.